All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one podcast on innovative teamwork. Been number one for several years and running with zero, hear me clearly, zero plans of slowing down. Today, we are, well, first of all, for my regular listeners, you guys already know how we get down right to the point and whatever the challenge is, whatever the struggle is, whatever the obstacle that you may be going through right now. We're here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. Today, buckle up, as you guys are used to now. Buckle up your chin straps, buckle up your seat belts, buckle up wherever it is you're listening to it from, because we have a gentleman, his name is Brian Fleming, who has an unbelievable story, has survived some absolutely crazy events, tragic events. But, when you listen to him speak, as I was doing my research, you guys know I do my research before I let anybody on, you hear a person who's moved on from it and has a deep, deep passion towards helping other individuals get over whatever fears may be bothering them in the mind. So, all that being said, Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, my pleasure to have you. And like I had mentioned to you before we started recording, I'll never forget there was a time where I played football from 7 all the way to 22, and I remember getting to college and there was a fight that broke out, and our coach told us, guys, this isn't war. You guys aren't in the military. You're playing a game. I know we want intensity. I know we want, but it's not war. He goes, if you want war, if you want, I'll bring in some veterans and I'll have them talk to you and I'll explain exactly what that looks like. And I bring that up because so much of your story stems from some of the things that you learned in the military. So I'd love for you to just kind of give your background just a little bit, kind of, how you grew up, where you came from, and then we'll get into a lot of the self-development work that you do now.
Yeah, I grew up in southern Michigan, a town called Jackson, Michigan, about an hour west of Detroit.
Wolverine
And
fan?
I guess I mean
Okay,
they were the home
you
team.
gotta make
I
sure
mean,
you got the right team. I'm like a
my
like
my my family was more than me. I We had the Wolverines, 40 minutes east of us, and we
okay,
had the Spartans in Lansing, 40 minutes north of us.
okay, so
So it was like, hey, I don't really. All we knew is as long as Ohio State loses, we don't give a damn who wins.
we see it
So.
eye to eye. We see it eye to eye. We're good. All right, just making sure, man. A lot of regulars. I'm I psychotic Michigan Wolverine football fan.
Oh, you are? Okay. Are you in Michigan?
No, I'm from Maryland, but I grew
Oh,
up the when I played youth football, we used to wear the Michigan uniforms, and ever since then, I mean, I've been every time I see the wing helmets, the M, I've been obsessed.
yeah, that was probably back in the day when Charles Woodson still played for him, huh?
Back when Charles Woodson was there, man, Rose. But
Brian
the
Greasy.
thing is,
Yeah.
that number two, like I remember now that you got me thinking about it, whenever you had a guy that wore that number two with our jerseys, like we looked exactly like them, that number two was a big, big, big deal. Just anybody that played for the White Oak Warriors, Brick Shady White Oak Warriors, old school, you remember when you put that deuce on, hey, that means you him. That means you that
Yeah, man.
that
That
means
that's
you that
that's
dude.
probably like wearing a red basketball jersey and it's a number 23 or something.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. He was, and then to listen to him now do the broadcast and to see how much it has grown, the program, man, it's so much of it I tune into and I got really into it. I get really into it as I have grown.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, so I grew up in southern Michigan. Parents divorced around 12. Pretty traumatic thing. It was pretty violent. First time in my life I'd really realized that if I'm going to get by in life, everything's truly up to me.
Hmm.
Mother moved to Florida. I stayed in Michigan where my dad was. Then he went to jail. So then I'm 12, I'm 12 years old at this point, and it's like for the first time there's like no parents around, and what do I do? A whole big story behind that, but I always say that my parents' divorce actually mentally prepared me
Hmm.
to go through the war in Afghanistan. And some people might feel that's a little backwards, but it was traumatic enough to the point where it mentally kind of toughened and numbed me,
Right.
where it was just like you learn really fast. You get like a fastball in the face from 5 feet away.
Right.
How do you take it? You just take it and you roll with it.
Hmm.
And so ended up moving to South Florida near Fort Lauderdale,
Hmm.
North Miami, for the last few years of high school. Joined the Army straight out of high school there, Army infantry. This was in 2003. We'd just been in Afghanistan, a good year and a half, and that was still actually kicking off. And uh, yeah, I studied really hard. I wanted to actually go to college and become a doctor, and so I studied all that. And the first week of my senior year, I just had this massive change of heart. Again, things were escalating in Afghanistan. America was being, attacked from Afghanistan. Taliban was claiming responsibility, and so I just thought, two things. One, I've been to other countries, multiple other countries at that point in my life, even as a teenager. I realized like how good we have it in America. Like people complain about so much in America, but I
Right.
think I think 80% of the reason is because they've never had to see how the rest of the world has to live. And
Yeah.
so there was that. Like I didn't want anyone saying, "Hey, you have a great life in this country," because other people provided it to you. I wanted to at least do my part,
Right.
but then I also was sick and tired of studying so hard so long, and I wanted to jump out of some airplanes and shoot some big guns and blow some shit up. And so that's what I did. And it also came back at me a little bit as we'll learn in the story.
Right.
But yeah, and so I was assigned to the 10th Mountain Division,
Uh-huh.
and I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2006. I was a team leader in an infantry platoon, and I lasted 5.5 months of that deployment.
Right.
And during that deployment, about a month after arriving, I'll give you the short versions of these, but I was inside of two vehicles that were blown up and totally destroyed while we were inside them. The first one was a double stack of anti-tank mines that
Hmm.
were buried in the road on April 18th of 2006 in the Arghandab Valley. And I was physically unharmed. I was able to get out of the vehicle. It blew it up. It set it on fire. It threw it about 12 feet to the side of the road. This is an up armored Humvee, weighs about a ton or more, bulletproof glass for windows. One of my guys in the other back seat, the bomb went off underneath his seat, and so he was kind of just jarred by that, half conscious. I was able to get around to his door, drag him out of the vehicle. Another guy got out through that same door,
Right.
and two guys injured, both returned to duty within just a few weeks, thankfully. And then I had this crazy idea that I wanted to change my job from infantry to what's called EOD, which
Hmm.
is explosive ordnance disposal. Basically, they're the bomb squad. If it blows up, it's their business. If you see that guy running, you'd better be in front of him, that kind of thing.
Right.
Now, why I wanted to do that after being inside a vehicle that got blown up already, like a month prior, I have no idea what made me want to do that, but I got pretty infatuated with what that job and what they do.
Hmm.
And so I had I had a mistake on my medical records. It said P3. I thought, what does that mean? And they said, well, it means you're physically unfit for duty. Now, I was 21 years old, best shape of my life, running up and down mountains, fighting Taliban every day. Um, Certainly beyond fit for duty. And
Hmm.
so I had to go to Kandahar to get reevaluated by a doctor there because there wasn't one on our small base, our FOB. And so I was on my way to get that medical thing on my records fixed, and we got 2 miles from the main gate to Kandahar Airfield when a suicide bomber drove a minivan straight into my door of my vehicle and exploded. And I woke up laying in a ditch on the side of the road on the side of Highway 1 in Kandahar. I
Hmm.
had no idea where I was. I didn't know what happened. I don't remember an explosion.
Hmm.
Um, I just sort of remember waking up. I was face down, and I did sort of a push up. My helmet was no longer on my head. I didn't know where I was. I thought we were in a gunfight, but nobody was shooting.
Hmm.
Um, and then I thought, well, where's my weapon? Well, my
Right.
weapon, was still in the vehicle, and I didn't know it. And you don't go anywhere without your weapon. That's like walking around without an arm. And
Right.
so, um, me and my gunner were both injured. I had second-degree burns on my face, third degree on the back of my neck, as well as both my hands, and got medevaced out. Spent a year and 2 months at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. Burn treatment,
Whole
reconstructive
year
surgery.
of the whole year of being in the hospital.
In and out, yeah, for between in and out and surgery and everything else, inpatient, outpatient, it
Right.
was about 14 months.
Right.
And yeah, they had to scrape my skin off with razor blades while I was awake and conscious. That was probably the worst part of it. It's called debridement.
I heard
And
that. I was cringing as I was hearing you talk about that.
yeah, if you get severely burned, they have to, to get all the charred. dirty, burned skin off, or you can die of infection. And
Mhm.
they don't put you out for it because,
They can't. Right.
well, yep, well, they don't want to sedate you too much because you could slip into a coma.
Right.
But also you can go into shock from the pain, so they have to do it fast. And it took about 30 minutes, which felt like eternity.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the quick version of a major life event I've had take place.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to commend you and show my appreciation for your transparency from, growing up, dealing with divorce, moving from certain places, and, being able to sustain that because I know that would break a lot of people. But what I do want to get your thoughts on, because we are recording this in a political landscape that is so divisive. It's a political landscape, especially if we're talking business owners, we're talking people that are always, for some reason, always finding an excuse. And again, I'm not going to sit here and ask you who you voted for or what party you want, because I personally don't even like the two-party system as it is. I would prefer everyone kind of has a mindset of I'm going to do my part to help the country because it's the country that I love and it's the country that I serve. It's the greatest country in the world. We're so blessed to be here. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear when you're able to get yourself back together. This is stuff that I've learned through, whether it's through friends, even, I do every Sunday, I do it's a Stay Hired Sunday with a former veteran that talks about getting jobs for former veterans. How are you able to now adjust to life when you have lived through something like that, adjust to it to the point where you're actually publicly saying these things and publicly telling this story that I'm sure it took some development on your end to actually say it and speak it in a public fashion.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been a professional speaker for about 17 years now
Right.
since getting out of the hospital.
Right.
Yeah, and the thing is, I never planned on talking about it.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I always thought it would be kind of stupid because, well, one, who cares about my story? And two, um, I was around so many guys who were so much worse injured than me, so
Hmm.
much worse off that I thought, well, gosh, I mean, my buddy who was burned on 97% of his body, third degree, like, what the hell do I have to talk about? Like,
Hmm.
I can still walk around. I still look normal. For about 8 months I didn't, but then my face healed. And I thought, why would I do that? Well, what happened was I met a Vietnam veteran while I was in the hospital. He came through and spoke to me and about 30 other guys who've been blown up, shot up, blasted,
Hmm.
and burned. Well, he was a Vietnam vet who was burned severely. And he came home from Vietnam and used his story. And he spoke, started speaking, writing books. He'd been doing it for probably 35 years at the time I met him, still doing it. I mean, the guy's incredible.
Right.
And after his speech, I met him, shook his hand, and there was a connection there that was unique. And basically he
Was this
said,
a seminar that you went to and you heard him speak, or you met him while you were in the hospital?
well, I was at the hospital, but they have an auditorium on the fourth floor. I
Oh,
think the
okay.
fourth floor. Yeah, and so they'll have speakers come on, or that's where they do ceremonies and promotions and things like that. And he had talked to the base commander and wanted to come talk to us just about being wounded in combat and then moving forward. Inspiring story, but also he's funny as hell. Like he's one of these
Those
guys.
are the
He
best,
keep
man. Those are the best. Yeah.
Oh, it's great because like he can't talk about pain without making you laugh hysterically in the next moment. And it's
Definitely.
just he's so good at what he does. And he
Yeah.
basically said, Brian, if you're interested, I'll show you how to do something with all this. And I
Huh.
had no idea what he meant. But when I say meeting that guy changed my life, that's an understatement. Meeting that guy changed my family tree.
Yeah.
It changed my family tree. It gave me a purpose in life and an ability to, in business, produce financially on a level I never imagined was even possible. I didn't know anyone did that.
Right.
And then you look at what you can get paid for a 30 or 60-minute keynote speech.
thousand
Oh
percent.
my God. I mean, I was making more in a speech than my parents used to make in 3 months. And that was without writing books or knowing anything about business or, product sales, services, anything like that. It was like just the fee. And I thought, wow, I can provide for my family, even though with like my head injuries, because I had head injuries. I couldn't tell you what I ate for breakfast 5 minutes after eating it. it was that bad, my traumatic brain injury.
Exactly.
So like it was that there was headaches every day. I had some hypervigilance, like just, stuff you would expect.
Mhm.
So that would make it very difficult to just be in a traditional role at a job. Like I would have made it work, obviously, but
The challenge,
being
like
able
day-to-day challenges would have been incredibly tough, because again, being around that and understanding what you've actually lived through and then being around that mindset that is taking these things for granted. Again, I couldn't imagine how difficult that is. But anyway, keep going. I get it. By the way, that happens on this show when people are really speaking it, like really talking that language. Eventually, I gotta interject and make sure listeners are
totally.
getting this point. You have got to make sure you get this point home. There's so many people out here that are living through so many situations, and regular listeners have heard me say this on multiple occasions. Difference where you are now and 5 years from now, books you read and the people you meet. Emphasize on the people that you met. He never planned on meeting this guy again,
Yeah.
but have something set up. He meets him, and all of a sudden, his whole family trajectory, everything changes because now there's an actual way for him to be financially well off. Doing something that he obviously is called to do. Nature. You were a hard studier at high school. So it wasn't like you had planned this. This was stuff that you wanted to be, an honest person and making an honest living.
Yeah. And I want to say this too. It doesn't, don't ever judge or compare your trauma or challenges to someone else's. I have a lot of people say things like, wow, Brian, you know, I grew up in an abusive household and got molested 93 times before I was 12 years old, but boy, I've never been attacked by a suicide bomber. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, like I would rather go back to war and have that happen than to go through what you've been through. Now you wouldn't believe some of the, well, you would believe some of the shit people have been through. And people oftentimes look at someone they see as worse off and they go, wow, they downplay their own. And you shouldn't do that. Don't downplay your own experiences. We tend to do that, but don't discredit what you've been through and what you can take away from that because you're kind of cheating yourself. So I just
Exactly.
want to say, I want to say that because that's a very common thing.
Yeah, and it's a
Now,
result. It's a result of what I was telling you before. These two-party, these making you feel like you got to be separate. Listen, we all have drama. We all have difficult things that we live through. You
yeah.
comparing your drama to somebody else's drama does no good for you. It does no good for you. Figure out how you could work together to do your part to make the country better. Again, this is why I trash that system in so many different ways. You wouldn't even, we would probably be on here for another 2 hours if we were to go down that route. Go ahead.
I agree. So I'll tell you what the turning point was though. Uh, Dave Reaver is the guy's name, who taught me how to speak. He About a month after meeting him, I got a call from his secretary. She said, "Hey, Dave's doing this event up in Manhattan, Kansas, right outside Fort Riley, the Army base." She
Mhm.
said, "He'd like to have you come to the event." I said, "Okay, well, military doesn't pay me much. Plane tickets are expensive." She goes, "Oh, don't worry, we'll cover everything." I said, "You'll pay for it? It's free?" She goes, "Yeah, we'll fly you there for free."
You go.
I said, "Well, I grew up poor, so free is good. You offer me something free, I'm going to take it." And I did.
Damn good. Free sounds damn good.
And so what happened was I didn't realize how many people were going to be at this event. Well, I was sitting in the front row, didn't really see it all filling behind me.
Mhm.
And Dave's up there speaking 20, 25 minutes. He's halfway through his talk. He looks right down at me and points at me and goes, "Brian, come on up here. Tell him about yourself." Now I'm still in burn bandages on my hands. My face is still pink from the second degree burns.
Oh,
And I get up and he hands me the mic and he says, "Take 2 minutes and tell him what you've been through." It's like, "Hey, I'm Brian. I got blown up, wrong place, wrong time. I guess I'm still here for a reason. Go for it, I guess." I don't like worst motivational speech. And like
but these
totally,
was the audience wasn't former military, but these just audience of just like business
it
owners.
was it was people from the surrounding area, as
Mhm.
well as probably a lot of military families because it was right outside a military base.
Mhm.
And so I just said, "Hey, I'm Brian. I got blown up. I guess I'm still here for a reason. I don't know. Go for it." And I didn't think that 2 minutes was really anything
Mhm.
until I stepped off stage. The moment I stepped off stage, my life changed.
Right.
It was a 1 degree shift. It was little, but it was huge.
Hmm.
It's like in land navigation. If you're navigating a mile and you're 1 degree off, it's like, oh, you're 10 feet away from the target. But if
Right.
you're going 1,000 miles and you're 1 degree off, you're going to be probably 200 miles away from your target.
Right.
Now, this actually worked to my benefit and in my favor. And here's my point. I got off stage, and this young lady who was in her mid 20s, about my age, she walks up to me, didn't even tell me her name. She just puts this on me. She goes, "Hey, Brian, um, I was I was also hurt. I was raped and molested growing up several times,
Mm.
and then my boyfriend was also abusive, and then we just broke up last month. And a couple weeks ago, I tried to kill myself, but I failed." And she stopped, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I'm so sorry. Like I'm thinking, like, what do I say to this person? I didn't have any advice, but then she said this. She said, "But you know, Brian, if you can make it through all that," referring to Afghanistan, she goes, "I think I can get through my thing."
Hmm.
And she thanked me for being there that day, and she left. I've never seen her since.
Mm.
Now, that was people say I helped her, and I didn't mean to. I agree. But also, she helped me in a way I didn't know.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what happened in that moment for about 5 years after it happened. And I realized what it was when I was reading a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. One of the best books ever written, period. If you haven't read it, go read it. And one of the things he says about uh, going through pain and suffering, because Viktor Frankl is a Nazi prison camp survivor. His whole family was killed. And he had like I mean, the odds of him getting out of there alive were insanely small.
Right.
Well, he was an Austrian Jew, a psychiatrist, a very brilliant man, very intelligent. When it came to suffering, he has a line in that book. He said this. He said, "In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning." And I'll say that again. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. So, what happened in that moment when I met that lady was I discovered a shred of a sense of meaning in my suffering because it had helped her. I thought, wow, like I wouldn't have been here today. Who knows? Maybe she would go home and kill herself or try it again.
Right.
I don't know. But I went to Dave after the event and I said, I don't know what just happened. I said, but I have to do this. And
Right.
he said, don't worry, I'll show you. It wasn't like, hey, I'm thinking about exploring public speaking,
Right.
adding that to my career path so I can make more sales and blah. Like, no, it was like, I don't know what just happened. I have to do this. Will you help me? I'm gonna do it or die trying. Will you help me? It was
Right.
something that came out of me that I didn't know was inside me.
Right.
And it was redeeming for me, but also the reason for that is because there was redemption for her to an extent.
Right.
And what's even cooler is that people who are standing around observing an interaction like that, they also benefit from watching it. Isn't
Exactly.
that amazing?
Exactly. And I tell folks all the time, I do a lot of takes, I do a lot of public speaking, and I tell people all the time, it's because there's a point where you don't feel like you're by yourself on these stages. You don't feel like you're by yourself behind these cameras. You know what you're doing is actually helping somebody save their life. And it's not a essence of being cocky or feeling like you're God or anything like that. It's genuinely
Yeah.
putting my heart into it. And I know that it's not just me. It's also my grandma. It's also a coach I had. It's also the people that have been in my life that I know are with me regardless, are going to be with me sort of in spirit. So, when you get to that point and you have that, absolutely, that's a life-changing thing that she told you. Walk us through how you were able to now, or how is David, right? The one that helped you like create the business.
Dave, yeah.
Dave, right? Walk us through how you get to that point, and then eventually you're able to turn it into something that is now a full-blown business. And this is kind of this is what you do now for close to 2 decades at this point. Because I know that's another challenge is getting in the speaking business. I know is a challenge in itself and figuring out
Yeah.
who you're going to work with, what gigs, you got to do some free stuff. You got to do a lot if you're going to make it in the speaking business. Just putting it out there for you guys now. So you better have a story that you really truly believe in.
Yeah, well, I had a very I've had to work for everything. I'll preface it with that. Like
Mhm.
everyone else, I did have a unique advantage of a guy who wanted to help me share my story. He was is very successful at speaking.
Mhm.
And what he did when I got out of the military was I went to work for his company during the week, and then I would travel with him on the weekends, and he would put me on his stages for, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 7 minutes there, 6, 7 minutes. And the thing is, every time I got on stage and told my story, I got better in
Yep.
two ways. One, at speaking, but two, I got better up here in my head and here in my heart. I
Mhm.
got better as a person, little by little, like letting pressure out of out of an air tank, that release valve, that little by little.
Right.
So now he did that for me, but I still on the side had to start booking my own gigs
Mhm.
and doing my own thing. And that only lasted the first, 9, 10 months, about a year. And then, it was time for me to jump out of the nest and sort of fly.
Mhm.
And so the big thing is this. It's like any other business. People pay money for value. You have to provide value, which means, and value always comes in the form of solving a problem people have.
Mhm.
So in speaking, it was, well, what problem do people have? Well, people have trouble overcoming challenges. They have trouble being resilient. I had to look at, I would go to the Speaker Bureau websites before I even was represented by them. I am now, but I would look and go, what are like the biggest topics they have? Because those are businesses and
Right.
they only book topics that make money because they're a business.
Right.
I would see things like leadership, teamwork, uh, things like that. I would say, okay, well, resilience is kind of my message.
Mhm.
How can I adapt that? Well, I started getting booking, creating talks and getting booked on how to be a more resilient leader, how to be, how to create resilient, productive teams that win more. So
Mhm.
I was taking the topics that are already being paid for and in demand, and I put my unique spin on it, my own angle, which is what you have to do to stand out. You have to have your own angle, like your own. You can do the same thing as everyone else, but if you have a very unique way or brand of doing it or an angle, like, oh my God, like it's like you become a category of one if it's really good.
It's almost like you had mentioned when that 1 degree turn may not seem like a lot, but a lot of us, again, content creators and speakers, we're speaking on very similar topics. But if you want to really last and go the distance, so to speak, is you have got to have something unique because there's so many out there. And if you're not unique, again, you're just gonna get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, and one thing I would do is like I would make it like glaringly obvious. I'm
Mhm.
like, all right, I got injured by a suicide bomber. Crazy story. It is a little over the top of a story. Like, wow, that doesn't really happen to people, thankfully, but it did me. So I'd start integrating that into my marketing messaging. Like, a suicide bombing survivor talks about overcoming challenges.
Mhm.
Or suicide bombing survivor talks about the three biggest ways to overcome, your worst challenges or something, like, because it's instantly within credibility of my story. I use my story as the foundation, but my talks are not my story. My story is only the first maybe 10, 12, 15 minutes of my talk. The rest of it's actual content. But when when I would call a military coordinator and say, "Hey, my name is Brian Fleming, formerly Sergeant Fleming. I was a team leader with an infantry platoon with the 10th Mountain in Afghanistan. I was injured by a suicide bomber. I'm a Purple Heart recipient." And I would say, "Hey, do your soldiers, do your service members and their families ever deal with, post-traumatic stress and marriage issues after coming home from war? That is a really big problem, and you're looking to try to help them with that." Well,
Right.
these are what I call "hey, stupid" questions because, yes, obviously, I know all the problems they deal with because I was one of them and I have a family. And so I would say, well, despite being injured in combat, coming home, recovering a year and 2 months at the hospital, I've now moved forward in life and I've learned a lot of lessons about navigating through post-traumatic stress and keeping your family together after coming home from war. Would you like me to come talk to your service members about that? and I've been, married, this whole time, and I still am, almost 20 years now.
Right.
It's almost like it's like a they would feel stupid to say no
Right.
because of how I framed it. I could just say, "Hey, I got attacked by a suicide bomber. I'd love to come talk to your service members."
Mhm.
But there's no value in that. But I attached my story to a problem I know they have, and I presented myself as a solution with a unique angle.
Right.
How to stand firm when everything around you is blowing up. That's my keynote speech.
Yep.
And my website, my speaking website is blownupguy.com. I actually looked blown up a lot more when I bought the website, and I don't anymore, thankfully, but it's easy to remember. See what I mean?
And it's so in alignment with what a business owner would actually feel like. When stuff goes wrong, I mean, the whole business blows up. They use this language kind of as a metaphor, but when you actually have someone that really's gone through it, now that same language is being used, and then you use the key word on this. How are you creating value? I hired a coach myself. Shout out to Dre Baldwin. He would always tell me, hey, no one cares about your story. They don't care about your story until you figured out a way to apply it to them and create value in their lives. That's just the
Yep.
game. All right. That is the
The
game.
the way I say it, the way I say it, because I've mentored other people in speaking and sharing their story,
All
and
right.
you said it, you said half of it. I say nobody cares about your story. They care about what your story can do for them.
It can do for them. Right.
And
And
that's exactly it.
that's exactly it. So, I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you just talk to people a little bit about, what's next? If there's like an ideal client that may be listening, can you just talk to people a little bit about what you have going down in the future, how they can get in touch with you and all that good stuff?
Yeah. I still do keynote speeches whenever they come up. I love doing it. I love talking to audiences. But more recently, I've actually, uh, over the past 14 or 15 years, I've actually been a copywriter. So writing words that sell. The better I got at writing copy, being a copywriter, the better my speeches got and the more bookings I got because I knew how to communicate my value in a clear and compelling way. So when the right people saw it, who I was trying to get their attention, they saw it and it connected with them.
Yeah.
So I do
Just brought
a
that up because we live in an AI-driven world, and I've said it on multiple occasions. I have several guests that have come on and said AI is not going to solve all your problems. You still have to have actual human brain, human activity, knowing what to put in there and proofreading everything.
yeah. AI is more of a tool to be
Mhm.
used by
Right.
business owners and copywriters, things like that. If you think AI is going to replace like these fun, like people have said, like, oh, copywriters are going to get replaced by AI. It's like, all right, are we going to replace our girlfriends with fake robot women?
Good,
Like,
exactly. Work like
like, uh, like,
it just
like
makes the
the
people that use it a little more stronger in terms of how they use it. Because
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
someone that writes articles every day, and I had no time to actually, write so many and then proofread and all that. So I'll write the article, and then AI just kind of becomes just my proofread person, and I check it before it actually goes published. So it's you still have to have the human brain that actually is using it the right way.
And plus, I grew up watching Terminator 2. Do we really want to put our hands in the future,
Oh,
our
okay.
futures in the hands of
You brought
robots?
it back. Oh man. To me,
You
easily
know,
the best one right there. Terminator. You can't top that one, man. I'm
Cyberdyne
talking the guy
systems.
thinks
Yeah.
all he's metal, and next thing you know, the guy has swords for him. I'm like, this is incredible. This is incredible stuff.
Yeah. So what I'm doing now, basically, because I'm really, after all these years of traveling speaking, I really kind of hate hotels and airports and sleeping in both. And so I actually do a lot of copywriting now for business owners and companies. So in essence, I write words that make your business money because everything you sell more when you use words that resonate with people. And what a lot of businesses, a lot of company, what it doesn't matter what size you are. You could be a mega billion-dollar company or you could be a small business owner. You have to use the right words to talk about what you do, and you'll get more paying customers. What so many business owners do though is they see their product or service from their perspective, and that's a place where they know everything about it. And they forget that everyone else is basically in kindergarten. And if you talk about your thing on a PhD level to a bunch of kindergartners, you're drowning them out. They don't know what you're doing. But like I could say copywriting in all kinds of different ways. But the headline on my website for copywriting, I'm looking at it right now. It says, I write words that make your company more money. That's the first thing you see. So you know immediately what I do, a freelance copywriting services that grow your revenues. So it's being able to say what you do in a short, clear, compelling way, is it's a superpower. It's a Jedi superpower,
So,
and it's a learned skill. And so I do copywriting for businesses, and I love it. I've always been. I discovered I'm a word nerd after I got into speaking all those years ago, and I love words. I love playing with them. I love testing them, using them, helping people get more sales and get results. Just by saying the same thing they were saying, but saying it differently, like, "Hey, try it this way," and they go, "Oh my God, like we just made like another 5 grand this month," or "I just landed another client." Like one guy, he was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, and he was getting into speaking. And so we got on the phone. I coached him a little bit. He had never been paid for a speech ever. Adam is his name. He's up in Pittsburgh. Within 1 week of just doing what I told him to do, he booked a speaking gig for $8,000.
there you go.
I'm
There
like,
you
I'm like,
go.
dude, it's in what you're saying. It's like, how are you saying it? Like, it's so fun to not just write the words, but to watch people get results like that.
The results are incredible because I love when people are being transparent and they're able to share their stories and give of themselves fully because that's what this whole thing is really about. So, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they are interested in hearing more?
Yeah, if you want to see actually what I've done in speaking, book me to speak, just go to blownupguy.com. It's really easy to remember. I'm a guy, I got blown up, blownupguy.com. Or if you're
That'll
interested,
be in the show notes too, guys. So you don't gotta worry about writing it down, but you'll remember that one.
yeah. And then if you want to have me write your copy for you, your ads, your emails, your headlines, your landing pages on your website, if you want your words to be right so you sell more, just go to copythatsells.co.co, copythatsells.co.
Got it. And we will make sure all of that is included in the show notes as well. So, Brian, the way I close out all the shows, as I kind of alluded to earlier before we started recording, is want you to use your imagination a little bit. Let's pretend you're back with senior year in high school. I'm actually in West Palm Beach now. So you're out here, South Florida. You're in that place now where big grown adult decisions are going to be made. Pretend that that version of Brian is here in the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Yeah, if I was talking to the child version of me right now, I would say stop being afraid to try things. And if you want to do something, just dive in and go for it. It doesn't matter if you screw it up a bit, you don't get it right. Like, just do shit. Like, just get out there and do it and help as many people as you can. And just watch the incredible things that start to happen in your life. And then don't ever stop.
That's it. That's it, man. Absolutely. And again, if it's your first time here, the reason I do close out with that question because is if you are that person that I described, I want to make sure we're talking directly to you and like the promise of the show, whatever the obstacle or the challenges is that you're going through, we're here to indirectly tell you you're not going through it alone. All that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.